How about that quarterback? He was something else.
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid, what's going on, everybody? We are back. Grifka, what's going on?
Just living the dream, man. How you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing much better than our last podcast where we tried to put on a decent face and tried to have a little fun towards the end of the show, but it was a tough one to get through with such a terrible football game. So we're back today, and we told everybody before we got to Sunday that we'd preview this 49ers game and dive a little deep on a few of the topics. So we're here today to just talk about that. We got a few questions here that we'll get through, and just looking forward to another big game that actually counts here on Sunday. So, sound like a plan?
Yeah, let's do this.
What kind of news and notes? You got anything on your mind? I mean, anything that's happened since the Monday night game, either roster-wise or with the team that you want to bring up here in the beginning?
I mean, just a couple things. I saw today that Detroit's loved son of Zach Zenner was released today, so I guess we can stop listening to people wondering why he's not running the ball. I mean, he's not on the team anymore, so I don't know how much that'll hurt. I know before the training camp started, I was kind of pining for him a little bit. I liked how he ran hard. It always seemed to fall forward, but I was one of those guys that was always thinking, like, if he was better than that, he would be getting the ball a lot more than what he does. I know people are like, well, he always seemed to run hard. He'd always be at halftime with 50 yards. Why'd they stop giving him the ball? I don't know. Maybe the coaches saw something different. But, Zach Zenner being released today, I don't know what's that exactly opening up, for somebody else. If they're maybe looking to try to bring in maybe somebody on defense. I don't know. I haven't heard. I just did read that Zach Zenner was released today. That's one of the things. Another thing I've been kind of watch is the Ziggy status with his shoulder. I know I haven't really heard a whole lot. Just that one of those things. It's going to be the day by day type thing. So I know he had a couple good plays early on against the Jets till his shoulder went. Started giving trouble, so he had to get pulled from the game. So it's one of those things. It really hurts our pass rush when he's not out there. So. It's one of those things I hope it's not an extended time and it's something that he can work through and play every week, because I think right now even 75% of Ziggy is probably 100% better than the next guy they put out there. What have you been hearing, Derek?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, Zach Zenner will be tremendous in the medical field, much better than he was in the backfield, I think. So good luck to him on his future endeavors. Good guy, but like I said, I got frustrated after the first little bit of, like you said, people wanting to pull him, get him the football, things like that. So, you hit on Ziggy, which is good. We'll kind of go through some of the injuries and things as we get into the ball game. I mean, I guess the biggest thing with me, there was two random items that came up. The first one was, I guess the Lions brought in some punters to work out. Like, I think they're just – somebody is soiled on Sam Martin, and he hasn't been very clutch and just seems to be falling off for whatever reason. I know he had that freak injury, which was said to be from either skateboarding or some type of stupid thing he was doing. So it feels like they're looking to replace this guy if they can find the right fit. So, I mean, it's a punter. What does it really matter? But, I mean, special teams is important, but those kind of guys usually are a dime a dozen. So I saw that. And then a lot of just these random articles and reports again, which I already cut a promo last podcast about that. And every time I turn around, it's some random reports about how, he lost the team and this, that, and the other. And I'm not going to go off on it again, but there's no way you're losing a football team one game in or because of a few laps and a few things in preseason. So everybody, again, just needs to settle down and we'll get this thing going. So other than that, I mean, there haven't been any roster moves here or there, just added another offensive lineman, things like that. There always seems like they're digging for depth or a diamond in the rough on the offensive line, but we haven't really found it off the waivers. Our draft picks step up, and hopefully Crosby can be a good depth piece there. But other than that, pretty much status quo. Lots of questions, again, about last week, and just moving forward, like me and you talked. games behind you, it's over. And just like that, here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast, we're moving on to week 2, Grifka. So we are heading out. There's been a lot of talk too about a short week. To me, that's a bunch of garbage, man. It's really not that much shorter of a week. I don't really know that makes much of an impact as people try to make it out to be. The long trip out west is something to consider, just because those are sometimes a little different. You're not used to doing that and getting a whole football team over there, time difference, and getting ready. But we're going to San Francisco. What are you thinking? I mean, this is a big ball game. To me, it's one of the games, even though it's game 2. Are we going to see another sloppy, just bad game across the board, or is this team going to flip the script and really shut people up and play good football?
Well, you know how I feel about East Coast teams traveling west. It's always a
automatic
tough game
loss.
It's I wouldn't say automatic, but it tends to be more of a loss than a win. And it seems like in
San
the past,
Francisco, Grifka, let me remind you, the 49ers who, like, if you had asked last year, I don't know that you'd have been too worried. Yet now all of a sudden everybody's got them being world beaters.
Yeah.
Go ahead, though.
Hey, I agree with you. I know I was all the people giving Jimmy G all the love, but I saw his stats against Minnesota, and once again, Minnesota, I realized, is one of those elite defenses, and they're playing in Minnesota. So his stats weren't, that great against Minnesota, and I've never thought he was like the next Joe Montana out there. But I see the Lions tweaking some stuff, especially on that defense. I think it's one of those things. Once again, it's a young quarterback. I don't think the San Francisco offense. I mean, we said this against the Jets as well, that they have a lot of guys, skill positions that scare you. And I know they have our old buddy Lincoln Tomlinson, on their offensive line. So this is one of those things I think Paul Pasqualoni is going to be able to come up with a game plan to maybe at least get a little more pressure on Jimmy G there. Hopefully get the ball out a little quicker. That's one thing that definitely needs to happen. And then on offense, I know we talked about this on the last podcast, either switching up some hand signals, maybe trying to be a little less predictable. But maybe that's just one of those games where the Jets were really focused on week 1, so they did a ton of tape on that. And I'm not saying every team doesn't do that, but once again, it's a short week for Detroit. They got to tweak some stuff to, open up that offense a little more. What do you think about it? Go ahead.
Let me jump in on that one about the whole hand signals. So you did bring that up, but we didn't really talk about it much. Like, do you buy that at all? Because to me, they asked Patricia about it, and he was just kind of like, every game, teams have already studied and are picking up on tendencies, nuances, things like that. Now, in my opinion, it's been verbally said more times about the Lions than you hear about other teams, but I don't put a ton of credence into it. I mean, most teams know what other teams do for the most part, so you just need a few wrinkles, and I think it was Dan Orlovsky, your favorite player, Grifka, who
Mr. Run Up the Back End Zone.
Yeah, legend, Lions legendary quarterback Dano. He's a good analyst, though. I kind of like listening to him, and they were asking about it, and he was like, I wouldn't put too much credence, because people can say they're reading all your signals, but it's not like that can't be changed. And then next week you can just run the same signals that people think they have figured out and dummy call them, and then you have a big play out of it, So I just think the Lions sometimes get into more tendencies more so than, they're using the same hand signals, the same this. It's just, we're calling it from home on most plays, what they're going to do. Why would an NFL defense not be able to figure it out either? So do you really put stock in that or not so much?
Not a whole lot. I mean, there might be some that you don't use all that often. In a play, it's like, okay, I'm going to audible to this, and you do the hand signal. It's like, grabbing the face mask or touching the left side of your head, and it's always like 1 or 2 plays that it's going to turn out to be. And like you said, those guys are studying so much film just by your lineup, and if you audible to that play against that defense, like, okay, we know this is going to be the play that they run. I mean, they're pros. This is what they do. I mean, they're studying tape. There's guys breaking down tape for them, say, hey, watch this, watch this. One of the Jets players said, like, hey, I thought they were going to run this play. They called it, and Golden Tate actually, moved down 5 yards, so we knew that's what they were going to run. You're right. That's just from watching tape. So it's got to be where they tweak it a little bit, and like you said, the hand signals just could be dummy. I mean, anybody who's played football, high school on, it's just like you always hear like the offensive line. It's just like they have line calls that they call out, and you're actually coached. It's like, okay, there's actually dummy ones that you call. They sound like your calls, but they're dummy ones to make the defense think you're going to do something. You just run something basic then. But by tweaking them, the hand signals, like you said, I think there's so much film watched already, and their tendencies was more than saying like the hand signals. So, I mean, it's kind of like baseball. It's just like hand signals by the coaches. They try to change them up, but if you pick them up after a while, you can only touch your spot so many you only touch your body in so many ways that everybody can see it where they can't figure it out.
Here's my thing. We had a big back and forth about it, about how I still don't think the Lions have enough wrinkles though, because they don't run like the same play too often. That looks the same, it feels the same, and then it's a totally, different outcome. I do see a lot of the same, formations, the same route combos that you see out there with the guys on the outside. So it's about time they take some plays from the Andy Reid playbook and figure out how to design it nearly the same, but have, the play or the ball go to a totally different person in a totally different way, because they're still not creative enough on offense, no doubt about it. But one thing, to me, that's not a huge issue, but one thing I want to hit on are these injuries for San Francisco. I mean, Jarrett McKinnon has never been a huge player in the NFL, but he had an incredible opportunity to be like a all-everything running back with crazy speed and elusiveness, and he's gone completely. Their big guy on the outside, is it Goodwin or Godwin? I can't remember. Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah, Marquise Goodwin. Yeah.
He's a burner, and he actually has got way better in the last calendar year. Like, he was a nobody, and then he came on the scene. I guess he had a good offseason as well, but he's all dinged up. I don't know if he's going to play. I can name you many other skill guys on their team. They just have a lot of shifty slot receivers, and nobody that great on the offensive line. The biggest thing I'd worry about is the San Francisco defense with those big nasties. I think 4 out of the last 5 years they've taken D linemen or guys, D line and linebackers. I mean, they've got some huge guys up there with Armstead and all those guys from Oregon that they took that are just nasty defensive ends and defensive tackle bodies that are just hard to block. So I think that'll be the biggest thing. But I think they really are hurt by injuries a lot, and we got to take that into account, and that's when you got to come up with the dubs. Is like, if we're going out there and they were fully healthy across the board, that'd be one thing, but if they're down some of their top skill guys, we got to make them pay.
Right, and I agree with you, and I guess one of the big things is, I know with the defense are missing Reuben Foster, I mean, for off the field reasons, so I think that will help us as well. I know there was that big debate when the Lions drafted, Jared Davis. Was he the number one linebacker on the board or at that position? Or was that all Reuben Foster? They should have took Reuben Foster. At this point, I know I'm happy they didn't. I know the development of Davis is going a little slower than what we'd like, but I'd rather have a guy learning on the field than having to sit in a press box or at home just watching tape. So, I definitely like that, but I agree with you too. They have like those that they have that their defensive line is going to be pretty tough, especially the way the offensive line for the Lions has struggled lately. So if that's got to be one of those things where we do a lot of quick hitters, or somebody reads the hot route a little better. I know that happened last game where there was a mix up with the hot route. That'll definitely help. Maybe we try to use the tight ends a little more in this game, not staying in the block, but get them out in pass routes. It didn't seem like last game that the tight ends were used very much. I know, Tululu had a catch, but other than that, I can't remember any other tight ends actually getting a ball thrown their way. So
I was going to say they didn't do anything. Like, the one ball was forced to Wilson when he was in quadruple coverage, but they had made no impact at all. I know Roberts, my guy, had 0 for 0 and didn't even notice him out there. But
what are you talking about? He had a false start. He made the stat line.
Yeah, he's got to tighten it up. But one guy I do want to talk about is, you said a lot of some underneath routes and whatnot. What's your take on Sherm? Because Richard Sherman's always been one of my favorite players in the game. He talks it up, but he walks it. He's intelligent. He's a dog, as we talked about on the last podcast. He just goes out there, competes. He's physical. He, is competitive. He'll get in his own team's face. He'll get in your face. He's a guy you don't want to lock up with, but he is getting older. So do you worry about him at all? Because this kind of guy, to me, gives Matt Stafford issues. Like, I don't know how many years in a row Chuck Woodson picked off Stafford just by, again, knowing tendencies, jumping routes, savvy vet. Like, I don't want to see that happen on Sunday. I don't want to see Sherm cutting in front of one or housing one on us.
Right. But I believe Richard Sherman is I like him. Yeah, I liked him when he was part of the Legion of the Boom. You're right. I like those guys with the bravado like that and can back it up. Nothing's worse than a guy who talks a big game and then's always out there getting burned and still talk crap. But Richard Sherman, I believe he's one guy that always plays one side of the field. So he's not your defensive back like, say, like a Deion Sanders who would follow somebody. He's a guy that's like, okay, you're on this side of the field, you're going to be there all game. So that's going to be one of those games where Jim Bob's going to have to come up with matchups, knowing that, okay, Sherman's always going to play this side of the field. We got to run more on this side if you want to try to stay away from him. Maybe you put Golden Tate opposite the other side just so he's able to roam a little more underneath. But Richard Sherman's not one of those guys he's going to lock up against Kenny G or Marvin all day. I mean, if it's one of those things where Marvin ends up against him all day, it might be a really light day for him, and Kenny G gets the ball a little more. But that's going to be one of those things where Jim Bob's going to have to come up with matchups that will hurt the 49ers defense. But you're right. I believe trying to stay away from Richard Sherman is going to have to be one of the things that they will have to do.
One thing I'd like to see is, to me, so Kenny Golladay came out and played like a man, 100 yards, best game of his career. One thing that's weird with the Lions, and this could be good and bad, is it seems like they, in the last few years, love to say, oh, well, we spread the ball around. We throw it to who's open. So, like, every week, not only do you have no idea who will be the guy, but in some ways, like, I don't know that they know who's going to be the guy, which is a little frustrating because, like, part of me thinks that Golladay won't have a good game at all because he had one last week. Like, they won't match him up again. They won't look at the tape and go, like, okay, here's these routes that worked. How about we, not overthink it and go try to get him in some of the same situations against the San Francisco's third, fourth corner. Let's use his height when we get down in the red zone. So I'd love to see, like, 2-3 of these first handful of games, either Golladay be featured or them find like a guy that they can go to more than, okay, last week was Kenny's turn. This week we're going to set up the game plan so Golden Tate gets a bunch, and then we'll wait a few games, and all of a sudden Marv will be the guy and he'll blow up. I think you got to both go with your hot hand sometimes or look at the tape, as they say they always do, and figure out the matchups and the routes that work and feed those kind of things, because Kenny's only going to get better every week. So you need to just keep him in the mix, keep that mojo going and keep him going. Grifka, if you had a game plan, like offensively, who are the kind of guys you're going to either focus on or who are going to be your guys that are going to be picked to click? Give me like 2 of them on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, this week, I don't think I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball again against that 49ers defensive line. So they're going to have to do that sparingly. But a guy I think they really need to get going is it's going to have to be Golden Tate. I know we had mentioned it. Reuben Foster's not going to be sitting there patrolling the middle for them. They're going to need to get the quick hitters based on that defensive line being able to get pressure on them. So I think they're going to have to do stuff to either get Golden Tate open as one, and then whoever the hot hand is at the tight end. I know I can't see Tululo being the tight end to get all the balls, or maybe they run something a little special more for Luke Wilson. I know he didn't possess the same, I guess, athletic skill set that Eric Ebron did. And I know one of those things that said Eric Ebron would be able to go down the seam, but maybe they run some pass routes just for Luke Wilson to either get out to the flat, maybe like a flag route or something like that, just so they get him open. I think they're going to have to use those guys because once again, I think Richard Sherman's going to take away half the field. They'll have to shade the safety over to the other cornerback to help on the either on Kenny G or Marvin, depends on who's lined up on the other side. So I think they're going to have to get Golden Tate a lot of touches, and whoever the hot tight end is. I mean, if Mike Roberts decided to have a breakout game, or if it's Akeem Velez, I know we talked about him, and he's got some pretty decent hands. But if it's one of those things like they can get Luke Wilson going, I think those are going to have to be the guys that they'll have to get going. And I just kind of want to piggyback on your question here, and I'll throw it back to here, or your response, and then I'll throw it back to you, Derek. Those teams, they say like, oh, we have so many guys catch the ball, and they'll show that stat like X quarterback has completed a pass to 9 different guys. I'm like, you're right. That can be good and bad. Sometimes it's one of those things like, it's like those guys that catch, the 7th, 8th, 9th guy. It's always like the guy you don't expect, but it's always a very important pass at a certain time. It's like the guy's left open because he's on the field and they don't expect the play to go to him, and he's the guy that moves the chains. I've seen those stats where Matt Stafford has completed a pass to 7 different guys today. It's like, okay, a couple are like little flares out of the backfield for like no gain and stuff because that's the guy that was open. It's just like, I mean, yeah, you're completing it to a whole lot of guys, but are you completing really effective passes? I mean, are they doing any damage to the defense? I mean, it's stuff like that where I just kind of get caught up. It seems like those ones, like it seems, Tom Brady does it a lot. And it always seems like Ben Roethlisberger does that a lot too, completes it. Like he always has like these games where like he has completed a pass to 8 different guys today. And everybody talks about Antonio Brown when he was on the team and Juju Smith but it always seems like he's got that, he's hitting the 3rd tight end to move the sticks on a 3rd and 5. And it's always like, okay, we can get off the field now. And then he pops it to the 3rd tight end for an 8-yard gain and just keeps the sticks moving. It's stuff like that. It's just like, you complete a lot of passes to different guys, but are they effective? That's just kind of my take on that, completing passes to so many different guys. But that's how I think. Back to the question you posed to me, what do you think this offense needs to do to be able to score on San Francisco this week?
Yeah, I'll tackle that here in 1 minute. I just want to hit on your last point is that one thing that's really frustrating me, and I said it to you at the game, is you're right. Like Stafford and other teams do get credit for all those different receivers. But one thing that frustrates me about number 9 is like I feel like sometimes he's just hiking the football and running the play as it's drawn on the chalkboard or as they do in practice when no one's trying to play defense. There's too many times where it's just like snap, hike, bubble screen, and it's not open. You know what I mean? There's too many people over there, or he's running into the heavy box. Like I felt like last year he finally got over that where he was making all these checks, but they were actually good checks. So I just want to put that out there. Like I'm kind of sick of him throwing the slant just because that's the first progression when it's not even open. Go ahead and go through your things or feed. Like you said, feed your guys that need it rather than, I completed 10 different people. Well, that gets me to my second point, which is all the names you read off, Grifka, are all the people I don't want to get the football this week. Like, I don't want Luke Wilson being featured or being a tight end that we're going to count on this week. Like, to me, we talked about Sherman. I don't even know who their other corner is. I'm sure he's not very good. This is a game you go up over the top and you slam them with the football. Like, I'm already ready. If LeGarrette Blount is done, I'm already ready to give Kerryon 20 carries and just see what he can do. To me, this should be decent weather. That again, they got a tough D-line, but with Ruben and a few other guys out, I don't see why you couldn't pound the 49ers. Like, I'd love to pound them, play action up over the top, stretch them deep, because I don't know that these guys on defense can run. I think they're a physical defense in some areas, and they have some veterans here or there, but I don't know that they can run with some of our guys. So Kenny, Marv, I'd love to see them up over the top, and I'd love to see a mixture of Kerryon, Theo, and Amir. Well, basically Kerryon pound, and I would love to see, the passing / running game be a part of it as well, but mostly just pound them with Kerryon and throw it deep to the fast skill guys would be my 2 if I had to name. That's 3, but 2 or 3 guys that I think will be impactful. I don't want to use Luke Wilson at all. I don't want to use Toy Lolo ever. I don't want to feature T.J. Jones. I don't want any of these guys. Like, I want to go to our horses. And to me, this is a defense, again, that, isn't good enough where we shouldn't be able to impose our will offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that as well, but I don't know if like you said, I don't know exactly who the other cornerback is for San Francisco, but I mean, I can understand what you're saying about opening up the top, because sometimes it seems like the Lions do get a little conservative. Even last year, at times where they could have went deep and they decided not to.
Tell me, what is Luke Wilson, Griff? I haven't seen him do one thing since he put on the Lions uniform, and obviously I wasn't watching him in Seattle, and he didn't play much anyway. What is this guy?
I'm starting to think he's not a superstar, but he's.
Is he anything? Can he do anything?
I think he's just another guy. He's that term that we talk about that we worry about. He's just another guy. I mean, they signed this guy, like how we had talked about on a previous podcast, that the sum of all parts is greater than, a superstar here and a superstar there. And I know, I believe that came from the Khalil Mack talk, that we were having before, that, if you have two superstars, and everybody else, you can't afford them, your team's terrible. Where you try to put a team together, it's just like the sum of your whole is better than, just a couple great players. I'm thinking he's just one of those other guys, but you're right. I at this point, even in the preseason, and I know preseason doesn't mean anything, but that first game, like you said, to see a little more from him, to see, like I said to you before, I just want that tight end right now just to be the chain mover. That guy, it's 3rd and 3. He can do like a little 5-yard pass, catch the ball, and move the chains to keep the defense on the field. I don't know if he's that even. He might be just a guy, that if, like you said, if we ever found a better tight end, slightly better, I could live with it. So I don't know. And obviously he's running starting right now where, Mike Roberts isn't. And like I said, Tululo's more of the big blocking guy, and he just got lucky to catch, he just happened to be the guy in the field to catch that pass. And Akeem Velez, I don't think he's ready yet to be a starter by any stretch of the imagination. But is he the best tight end we got? Probably, I guess. But yeah.
I'm just saying, don't go into the Lions trap, Griff, because you're out thinking it, going like, oh, maybe we should feature Luke Wilson this week. Like, the guy hasn't made one play. He hasn't done anything.
I'm not saying
anytime he's been out there,
feature the guy.
I'm not willing to give it to him until he ever shows me anything. And we didn't see anything we were at practice either.
Well, I'm not saying feature the guy, but I'm saying that he's your number 2 option, throw him the ball. I mean, there seemed to be last year where they tried to force the ball to Eric Ebron just to prove it's just this guy's effective and he's a matchup nightmare for the defense. I'd much rather have that tight end be the, if we don't have Tony Gonzalez or Bubba Franks, I'd rather have a tight end who could just kind of sneaks off the line, does that block, falls to his knees, acts like he's beat, gets up and runs a little 5-yard out pattern, and who's open and moves the chains. I'd rather have that guy than, we have Eric Ebron. We drafted him in the first round, so we got to force feed him the ball to prove that it was worth it. But, I mean, right now, I'm not saying feature the guy. You got to throw the ball, to him 8-9 times. That's not what I'm saying at all. But when you need a first down, it's trying to, instead of forcing it to Kenny Boy or Marvin all the way down the field, hey, man, just take what he gives you, man. It's 3rd and 3. I'm not looking for a 40-yard pass, unless everybody in the defensive backfield fell down. But, I mean, if he's open there in the flat for a 5-yard gain to move the sticks, throw it to him. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, I said 2 players you think that you'd be impactful, and you named Luke Wilson and Golden. So that's where I got that from. But I'm just ready to, until those guys start making plays or I understand what they do, I'm not gonna name them as one of my 2 guys. But like you say, there's gonna be some attention paid to the guys I named because they're just better football players and whatnot. But another thing, we're gonna update the Kool-Aid drinkers on some injuries here, and then head to our questions pretty soon. But to me, Jimmy Garoppolo is of course, a big factor as a quarterback. I think what I like about him a lot is he seems to kind of get the ball out quick. He's got a ridiculously it's a unique throwing motion. He gets it out really quick and kind of, comes out of that holster slot kind of thing that just gets out there, not the Phillip Rivers of the world, but he does kind of have a unique motion where he gets it out quick. And I think he's going to make it hard for our pass rush to get there. And he seems to be, since he's been in San Francisco, he makes pretty good decisions. I know Matt Pat had a ton good to say about him today. Of course, they always say good things about the opposition, but he really said he has not only the personality, but the temperament and the decision-making of a really good NFL quarterback type of prospect. To me, that's going to come into play here because Matt Stafford's coming off a really tough game. He's always found it a little bit difficult to win on the road or win when he's down, not projected to win. So I think it's going to be a battle of wills maybe between those quarterbacks. And I think that Jimmy G is at home and he's going to be tough to get to for sacks. So we're going to need to get our hands on the football, tip ball, something to kind of disrupt him and make tackles when they're there to be made. But the battle of the quarterbacks is going to be a big one in this ball game, to my opinion. One of the teams is going to walk away with a W, and it's either going to be thanks to Jimmy G or number 9 back there on our side of the football. So I sure hope our gunslinger gets together.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the Lions can put the wraps on Jimmy G because it seems like he's been getting a lot of love from sports stations, ESPN, NFL Network, because he was 5-0 as a starter. Then he lost, to Minnesota. Minnesota's got a great defense. Wait till you get to home opener. I'm hoping that the Lions defense shows up and can really, like you said, either tip pass or scheme it where they get more pressure on them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So, you mentioned kind of the West Coast. We talked about that. We've talked about our kind of picks to click or people to watch. We talked about San Francisco's injuries. So just to update everybody on some of the Lions' bumps and bruises and whatnot, Matt Stafford says he's fine. He's practiced. LeGarrette Blount, I thought he might have kind of a bigger injury, but it shows here that he's practiced. Ziggy, imagine that, was limited. But the word is it's not too bad. So, I think you hit on it before, but I need to make a point of it right now. Like, I hated hearing not only that he was out and questionable right off the get-go on Monday night, but that it was his shoulder again. I feel like this thing's going to lag. It's always going to be, anytime he's in the game and goes down, we're going to have to, is that it? Is he going to be, and as much as we kind of give him grief for his injuries, like to me, a shoulder, a back, a bad ankle sometimes, like those are the worst ones to have because they're not easy fixes. And if you try to play on them, they can be aggravated pretty easily. So I hate to see that his shoulder is bad again, especially game 1, because I just think that's going to be a super big frustration and something we'll have to talk about weekly here on the show. Your boy TJ Jones, no practice, thank goodness. And then we got your boy Slay, not listed on the report. He kind of had like a concussion, but he was back in the game. Well, I don't want to say concussion. He obviously didn't because he came back in the game. But he got banged up, was down for quite a while on Monday. And that's, of course, a guy that we need out there. So any of those injuries, anything to say, any kind of worries about any of those guys, or you think that most of them will be a go on Sunday?
I think most of them will be a go. It's still early, though, so we could wait for Ziggy to come down with some ailment during the game. Maybe turf toe or hay fever.
If you had to call it now, does he miss the game?
He doesn't miss the game, but I think he starts, but something happens in the game where he has to get he misses a good portion of it.
First quarter?
I'll go. I'll take the over and say second quarter.
All right. Which again, we're kind of frustrated with the guy, but man, when he came off that edge on that first series on third down and blew through 2 tackles and had an absolute monster of a sack, like that's the perfect scenario of what we've been looking for this guy. But he just can't do it consistently, and his body's always dinged up. So, in my opinion, these are make or break games for him. As you said, that if he doesn't get it together, he's going to be looking for a job, and most teams aren't going to love this rap sheet of injuries. Right. So I sure hope he gets out there, and I hope he can not only play, but he can't just be out there. Remember when he would play kind of hurt, but you wouldn't even never notice him. Like, if he's really hurt, we got to find somebody else, because I don't want to see him out there playing but not making plays.
So let's put it this way, Derek. With what we talked about, scheming, game plan, injuries, going out to the West Coast, 4 o'clock start, team, East Coast teams I've said don't play that well. What do you have for score? Who do you have winning this game?
Oh man, we called in our predictions, but to me, just with everything swirling around this team, and again, this is the Detroit Koolaid Cast, so I'm expecting a bounce back from this team. I'm expecting Matt Stafford to have 3-4 touchdowns. I'm expecting that run game, if they give it to number 33, carry on back there to get cooking a little bit. I mean, we didn't even hit on it much on the last show, but absolutely pathetic again. I want to say they had 30 yards rushing on like 15 or 16 carries in total. That's just terrible. We cannot keep this going. So I think you're going to see a bounce back performance. I think it'll be somewhat close, probably like a 21-17, 24-21 heading into the later portions of the game. But I'm expecting a 10-point victory from the Lions.
Wow, 10 points going on the road. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Myself, once again, like you said, this is the Kool-Aid Cast. I will say, with everything that swirled around last week, the team's got to play better. Ricky Jean pretty much called him out again. I don't see him doing any freelancing on the defense, simply because somebody's going to notice that, and then they're going to point it out to him. It's just like you're going to preach to us and say, do your job, and then you don't. I don't think that's going to happen again. If the Lions win this one, I think this is going to have to be one of the Matt Stafford comebacks. I don't see this one as like the Lions going up and putting them away and just sitting on it. I think this is going to have to be one of those, pan at Matt Stafford, oh, you got the lead late in the game? Okay, I'm here to take it back. And the Lions win it out that way, late in the game and hold on. I'm going to go with a score of like 27-23. I think that's the way that game's going to have to go, with Lions winning it late in the game. It's one of those things where 49ers kick a field goal to go up, 23-20, and then Stafford has to bring them back late in the game. They win 27-23.
All right, well, perfect. We got our predictions in. Hopefully they're much better than our previous predictions, because we were quite a bit off on our game 1 of the season. So I'm expecting a better game 2 and better predictions here from the Detroit Koolaid Cast. So with that being said, Grifka, how about we hit a few questions here, and then we will get up out of here and let people get hyped, get ready for this game on Sunday.
Okay, let's see what the public has to say this week.
All right. Our first question today comes from Vincent K. in Greenwich, Connecticut. Vincent would like to know, I know you guys said the Lions would win easy on Monday Night Football. This isn't kind of a statement by him, but he says, but I knew they had no chance in hell. And then he asks, what do you think will happen this week? ? What do you think, Grifka?
Are we talking with the Jets, or are we talking against the 49ers? How the Jets are going to do this week? No, I'm just kidding.
No. He said that we thought they'd win on Monday. He knew that the Lions had no chance. Now what?
We obviously both think they're going to win here. I would have to go with they're going to have to bounce back, and I have them winning this game. So I'm not sure who Vince is. I really appreciate him listening all the way from Connecticut, but.
Any regrets on that we both had such a big blowout for Monday night, and here Vincent Kennedy or Vincent K just knew that it wasn't in the cards? Anything we should apologize for?
I ain't apologizing for that. No. No.
Yeah, it's crazy though. We were all set. Even all my buddies who talked to him, oh man, they should probably come out and hammer him. Even though we had a bad preseason, no big worries. And then it was the total other way around. So that was quite the shocker. So let me give you the second one, Grifka. You'll love this one. This question. Let me make sure I get this name right. Appears to be, this is Kobayashi, I believe it's pronounced. and he says he's at an eatery somewhere in Coney Island. He said, "Did you enjoy any of the new food on the Ford Field menu?"
Oh man, I just know we thought about it, but we didn't want to be in a food coma for the game. I'm starting to wish that we would have been in a food coma. I know I was kind of bummed out, man. By the time we got up there, like the line was just massively long, and I'm just like, I don't want a dog that bad. But next game, man, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Kobayashi. I did not partake in any of the new food at Ford Field.
Yeah, I was gonna say we talked up that bacon wrapped dog and a few other things, but in there we're just all football, man. We didn't want to deal with the lines, the people, the cost of that kind of stuff. So chocolate nachos or the fluffy food or whatever they're having there for the people that don't care about the game. We just sat in our seats and we're super excited, but then also just biting our lip for the whole game, just frustrated as could be. So, sorry, Kobayashi, no food. But we did have lots of hot dogs at the tailgate. So, again, we don't know you, but we probably that's probably one of your faves. And it's always a good tailgate go-to is the hot dog and the brats. So, I had a couple, not a world record or anything, but it was still good. Grifka, let me give you one, and then I think I sent you a couple too that you have, so you can have the last two. This next question comes from Martin in San Francisco. Martin would like to know, he says, I can't believe Ziggy is hurt again. Signed, water is wet, sky is blue, etc. Do you think a top pick always being hurt like this can impact a GM that drafted him? So he's kind of asking, like, Bob Quinn didn't select Ziggy, but we're coming up on year 2 or 3 of Bob Quinn's tenure. Draft picks are getting all dinged up. Do you think that can cost somebody their job as a general manager?
Oh, yes, definitely, because if they become misses, that becomes your MO. I mean, it's what happened to Matt Millen. He had all those misses, and it happened to Martin Mayhew. Not so much, I'm not saying the first round per se, but, all those second round picks, none of them stuck with the team. I mean, those are supposed to be, like I said, your Hall of Famers, your Pro Bowlers, your superstars. And like they always say at the draft, the back end of the draft is where you fill out your team. It's all those little grinders and special teams guys that fill out the rest of your roster. And if one turns out to be a Hall of Famer, then you kind of got lucky. You got the golden ticket. But if they're drafting guys, if Bob Quinn drafts a guy that's so either always hurt, never on the field, and you've paid him even under a rookie contract, you've paid them big bucks, then. Yeah, because at this point, I don't know. I guess trust is the only term I can use right now. It's just like, do you trust this guy to be able to pick the right people to build your franchise? And if I realize what Ziggy, he's a little older, and at this point, I remember when he was drafted, I always thought he was a project, and I never thought you took a project that early. And then he pleasantly surprised me with what he did, but. Said the last few years, it seems like he's becoming that paper lion. He just can't stay on the field. So, it's definitely going to, affect what GMs can do and how they're looked upon by the owners.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Let's see. I got, let's see, this is one that you sent over to me. It's from Barry in Bristol. It's like, Derek sure seemed right about Kenny G. Do you think he can keep it up all year?
Oh, man, Barry, I appreciate the question. I hate to pat myself on the back, but I have been saying that. And, again, it's only one game. But Kenny Golladay sure looked like an NFL receiver. He sure made plays, both deep, short, intermediate, went up and got the football on third down. I really liked what I saw. So I think both in fantasy football, he can be one of those sleepers that you want to latch on to now before he maybe has multiple games like that. And I think all year, if the Lions can find ways to match him up against guys that aren't as talented as him, and also, again, we saw a terrible red zone offense, I felt like, on Monday night. They were down there a few times, got nothing, missed field goals, and then also went for it on fourth later in the game and couldn't put it in the end zone. So I think next time we're inside the 20s, you got to look for number 19, number 11, and start throwing the football up to those tall athletic guys and letting them come down for touchdowns. So, Barry and Bristol, I don't know if you're a fantasy player or not, but you can take that advice to the bank and try to get Kenny on your team, as well as try to, don't give up on these Lions yet in regards to fantasy. But, yeah, I'm expecting Kenny to keep it up and have a big year.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping the same thing. It's a big breakout year for him. So let's see. Last one here. It's actually Brian from the Monday Night Football booth. His question is, did you know Sam Darnold is only 21?
Griff, I got one for you. Did you know, this is crazy, probably I'm just blowing your mind right now. Did you know Jerome Bettis is from Detroit?
I did not know that. Wow.
Oh, man.
Really? How God, I don't think, gosh, you think a guy who was born and raised in Michigan, would have actually heard that before, but no, man.
Griff, I got another one for you that you won't be able to believe.
What?
Did you know that Matt Stafford and Clayton Kershaw played baseball and grew up together?
God, you're just dropping bombs on me, man. You are like, this is like taking a punch from Tyson right here, man. I'm just like all wobbly, man. I'm about to pass out. You're blowing my mind with these stats.
I mean, Brian from the Monday Night Football booth, I mean, he's coming in with a doozy that we never heard before about Darnold being 21 and not being able to buy beer yet. I got to bring a few big nuggets to the table as well. So there you go.
I'm sure you blew our listeners' minds with that.
Yeah, they're welcome.
Yeah. So it's okay. That's all the questions we got this week. So everybody keep sending them in. They're nice to read them. Hit us up because it's always fun reading your questions. We do appreciate it.
Definitely. detkoolaid@gmail.com. You can check us out. And like we say, we're not doing any commercials or we're not selling anything here on the podcast. But if you give us a review or hit that subscribe button on iTunes, or even, find us on Twitter, Detroit_Koolaid on Twitter. Or if you want to send us that email, it's DET. The word Kool-Aid, all one word, lowercase, @gmail.com. You can send those questions in. So appreciate shot them in. We'll keep bringing those to you. We hear that people enjoy the question segment, so we'll keep that coming from time to time. So Grifka, we've given them a little preview. We've talked about some news and notes. We've answered some questions. Think there's anything else big, or should we just get ready for a big dub on Sunday?
Well, let's just get ready for the big dub, man. Everybody drink it in, man.
Definitely. So, shorter podcast today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Big bounce back expected for the Lions. And if they play like they did on Monday, we'll be right back here next week to talk about it. And we'll definitely have probably some different feelings on some of it, because we expect the team to turn it around and start playing better ball across. Everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy that game. Get ready on Sunday to support your team. We'll be back here next week on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Everybody, take care.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions. Drink it in, man.